So let's get the read on all of this from North Carolina Republican Senator Tom Tillis, kind enough to join us now. Senator, what do you make of this? It was an olive branch, or at least an offer, that the Senate Majority Leader made. Democrats seem to have, by and large, rejected it. What do you think?
Well, I think Speaker Pelosi and Chuck Schumer are back to their muscle memory for not really trying to work together, while the president and Leader McConnell and Republicans in the Senate are trying to come up with solutions. Look, we have got to recognize that a response to some of the changes we need to make in the CARES Act, making sure that we're being responsive to businesses and continuing to focus on health care. And I think Pelosi seems to be focused on political games.
Their argument is, I think, Senator, the Democrats say that if you give liability protection to a lot of companies, they might not do the things that they've been promising to do, masks for workers, adequate distancing provisions, and they might sort of drop their guard a little bit, knowing that they're almost bulletproof, that no one can sue them. What do you think of that?
I think that's a paper tiger. Look, the requirements to follow the CDC guidelines, if you have a business establishment that flagrantly ignores the guidelines, they're going to be subject to liability. What Speaker Pelosi and Chuck Schumer need to know is a lot of businesses, including a lot of businesses in the food supply chain, will shut down if their liability is the sky is the limit. We've got entire cottage industries of trial lawyers that are already thinking about strategies that they're going to use. We passed liability protections after 9/11. If we don't do it here, then they are directly responsible for shutting down businesses that are essential businesses that are critical to the recovery.
In the meantime, Senator, one other point Mitch McConnell was raising with me is this notion of infrastructure. He does not seem to be keen on it, wants to shut down the talk, even though the president has mentioned it. I don't know how you feel about that, but he just feels, for the time being, infrastructure not happening. What do you think?
I think he's right. I think he's just being practical. Neil, and my background is being, try to be fiscally conservative. We have passed a $2.7 trillion plus economic stabilization package. We need to fully program that. I'd love to talk about the infrastructure proposal that the president put together in a prior State of the Union address. There are a lot of other things that we need to focus on, but today we need to focus on speeding the economic recovery, fully programming the money that was put into the CARES Act and the supplemental appropriation, and getting people back to work and keeping them healthy every step of the way.
Do you worry, though, right now that because of the cautious, staggered nature of returning people to work, I'm not quite sure how it's going to progress in North Carolina, sir, but that it won't be a V-shaped recovery, that it will be a recovery just the same. The president is more or less acknowledged the quarter we're in is going to be awful. His economic advisors, though, seem to point to a slight improvement in the third quarter, almost off to the races in the fourth quarter, and a great 2021. Where are you on this?
I think that's likely to happen. It's one of the reasons why we have to go back into the CARES Act and maybe rethink some of the covered periods for the Paycheck Protection Program. We've got to accelerate the rollout of the Main Street Lending Act. We've got to see how the economic stimulus affects economic activity. All that's going to be tied to reopening of portions of the economy across the country and possibly even in North Carolina. But I do think that the second quarter is nothing but a recovery quarter. I mean, it's going to be flat. There's no V to this recovery. This is the flat part of it. I do believe if we take the right steps, we get businesses back online, that we can see the green shoots in the third quarter. And then I do believe a very clear trajectory for recovery in the fourth quarter and for 2021.
Are you open to still more of this Paycheck Protection Program spending? We're told, Senator, that almost all the funds allotted are more than accounted for given the over-the-top demand. I guess isn't too surprising. Some of your colleagues have talked about possibly maybe a third tranche of this, which it could, I guess, conceivably bring, for that program alone, over $1 trillion. How do you feel about that?
I think when we get back, we're going back next week to Washington. The Senate will be reconvening. I think we have to have a discussion about maybe, first off, I do know in this second tranche, the supplemental appropriation, it looks like the loan values have gone down, so more businesses will be able to get it. I believe that some people that got the first tranche are now, when they're looking at the attestations, whether or not they fully comply with the requirements of the program. I think we'll see some inflow, some people deciding to opt out of the Paycheck Protection Plan. They may go down another path, either with a private lender or with other SBA loan programs. And we need to net all that out. And that's exactly what we're going to do next week. But then you get into covered businesses, you get into the time period, the 8-week time period. Doesn't really work for certain industries like restaurants and hotels because of where they're going to lag the recovery. They could get the loan possibly now, but not really put it into operation for some period of time down the road, depending upon where their particular geography starts recovering business activity. These are the sorts of things that we need to be talking about next week and putting together proposals. And I do believe that proposal has to have liability protections in it.
All right. We'll watch it closely. Senator Tillis, good health to you and your constituents, your family. Thank you very, very much, Senator Tillis of North Carolina.
Thank you, Neil. Stay healthy.
By the way, the senator did refer to you too, my friend.